Yo, Aaron, do you like my Star Wars coffee mug?
I love you.
And then this is, I know. Hey, we're going to talk a little Star Wars. We're also going to talk about the Sly documentary on Netflix. That's coming up right now. Aaron Virola from the Fanboy Garage podcast. Let's chat.
Everybody, come on, let's get down. Get down.
Thank you to my good friend Freak Bass for the music, and me and Freak Bass and Bob Seska, the great Bob Seska, will be doing a show next week where we're going to recap 2023. But today on the Friends from Work Let's Chat podcast, I'm your host, Rick Shew. Just me today, no Courtney Cheek, no Brian Chatlin, but I'm joined by a very dear friend of mine who, I didn't see you this year, did I?
No, you did not, but that's okay.
We saw each other last year when I was in New York, but you haven't been to Texas. Well, you do come to Texas, and you just don't even tell me, and you just like, I got family stuff.
It was work related stuff.
Oh, that's right. You were in Austin, right?
I was in Austin. Yeah.
What'd you think of Austin, Texas?
I like Austin. I was in Austin before the pandemic, and it's definitely different. There's a lot more people in Austin than there were when I was there. So it seems like a lot of folks are moving or have moved to the Austin area, and it sounds like a lot of locals are just not really happy about that. And I can appreciate that.
They have this war cry there, keep Austin weird. And yeah. I think the origin of that, if I had to guess, I was spending a lot of time in Austin my whole adult life. Hook 'em horns. We're going to be Big 12 champs on 24 hours from now. But anyway,
Texans
is that the Austin was in the late 90s. They had the .com boom, right? And Dell moved to Austin. So all of a sudden, people were there that took showers and didn't have dreadlocks and, that kind of thing. It's like, keep Austin weird. And it's funny because it has stuck, and it still is, it still resonates to this day. And it is still at heart, still kind of a, granola hippie town. It just is. It's changed with everything else. But if you spend time in Houston because your brother's here and his family, it's very different from Houston.
It is very different.
And it always will be. And that's just it. As much as Dallas and Houston change, as much as Austin changes, the other cities around it change with it. And so proportionally, it's just as fucking different as it's always been.
Yeah. I mean, that's like any city in New York. Like, New York City is New York City, and you're going to get everything that you'd expect in there and more. But when you step outside of New York, you go to another town or another sort of city center, it's not going to feel the same. And I mean, it just everything pales in comparison to New York. Unfortunately, it's just the way it is.
So my daughters went to New York just for the first time with some family recently, and I was not with them, but and they loved it. Now, everything they did was like, Times Square.
Yeah, it's all tourist stuff.
Yeah, but to be fair, Times Square is still, still Broadway. I mean, you're going to see a show, you're going to see a show. But they did Central Park and they did a museum district and stuff like that. But this next year, 2024, Jen and I want to take her daughter and then my two and take them back to New York.
Right.
You've met Jen and Sailor, you know what I'm talking about. But take the whole crew, and I want to take them. Obviously, we'll see a show on Broadway. I want to see Back to the Future, and I really want to see that Danny DeVito show. If that's still going. But I want to take them to Brooklyn. I want to take them to Hoboken. I want to take
them to the boroughs.
Yeah, dude. I want to take them to Long Island. I want to get them out of, not just pockets of Manhattan they didn't see. Let's see what's around. And I don't mean just over the bridge. I mean in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Because that's you get into the heart of Brooklyn, man. That's a whole different world over there.
It's kind of like in Austin, if you will. There's a lot of interesting stuff going on over in Brooklyn. Even in Queens, Queens is super diverse. It is the epitome of a melting pot when it comes to food and just different pockets and neighborhoods and things like that. Like, in New York, you've got your Chinatown and your Little Italy and things like that. But in Queens, Corona, is a neighborhood of it in itself, and it's split by multi lingual and diverse sort of groups of people. You can go to Flushing, and you can in one part of Flushing you can get really good Korean barbecue, and on another side of the street you can get amazing hot pot and traditional Chinese food. So New York is amazing place like that, where you can, I mean, literally you can not leave and get tour the world. It's like an Epcot center, you know what I mean?
100%. It's my favorite city. Hands down, my favorite city. Speaking of New York, Sylvester Stallone's from New York.
Yeah,
I
didn't know that.
from Hell's
Kitchen.
So let's frame this a little bit for our first topic here, and I don't have any visuals queued up. I'm a little rusty, so I don't want to fuck with all that, to be honest with you. I'm afraid I would just screw it up because we're live, at least on YouTube we're live. But you and I are big Stallone fans. We're huge fans of the Rocky franchise.
Mm-hmm.
There's Rambo. He's had a colorful, crazy career. And I've always thought he's a very underrated actor. And you see it in Copland, and you certainly see his work. Some of his finest work as Rocky was in the two Creed films he's in my opinion, anyway. But we're big fans. And the story of his success and the story and the success and the origins of Rocky, so fascinating. And last year or earlier this year, I guess, Arnold Schwarzenegger's Netflix documentary was released, and I'm not nearly a fan of him like I am Stallone, not by any stretch of the imagination, but that was a damn fine doc.
That was great.
It was great. It was really great, and I love that it captured his career as an athlete, as a performer, and as a politician. Very well done. So we go into the Stallone documentary, and you and I are both very hyped for it. And it's kind of flat for both of us, right? I watched it again. Was it yesterday? I liked it a little better the second time.
Okay.
And it didn't fundamentally change it. I enjoyed, because it's not terrible, and there's some really good stuff in there.
Yeah.
But my issue with it remains is that it just felt like it was just on the surface.
Yeah, hollow.
And I wanted him to really peel back that onion. The most insight I got from him really was stuff about his dad.
Yeah.
And that was good shit. I mean, there's no doubt about it. It was really good stuff. I certainly like the footage of him and his father when his dad was dying.
Yeah.
But man, there's just so many missed opportunities. I felt like, even the story of Rocky felt like, okay, he's in Hollywood. He's friends with Fonzie. And like, I don't know, man. There's something sometimes when you hear about like a rags to riches story. And I'm not saying that he certainly was very accomplished and that was a miraculous thing. It just seemed to take away from it a little bit. Like he was a little bit more established before that movie came out than I thought.
First alone, because of Lloyd's of Flatbush.
Yeah, I guess I didn't even realize about that film. The Tarantino stuff was some of the best commentary in the.
Oh, I mean, for sure. I mean, I was kind of struck by the fact that he got Tarantino to talk, about his impact to cinema, and I was like, oh yeah, he definitely deserves to be there. But much like you, I felt like we were just scratching the surface with his story, and in many ways, you weren't getting. Outside of the personal stuff with his dad, you weren't really getting anything you didn't know or you didn't hear, through other parts of, the sort of legacy that he's crafting. The Rocky stuff, specifically the scene that he has with Mick, and how he channeled, some of the relationships the relationship he has with his dad in that moment, I thought was like fascinating, and like that's the kind of stuff I really wanted to hear more of. But you still don't know who Sylvester Stallone really is, when you come at the other end of it. And I thought that was a missed opportunity. I think, I watched the Arnold piece first, obviously, because it came out early in the year, and it was a docuseries, so it was longer, right? And there was a lot that they covered in terms of his investment in real estate and how he was already a millionaire before he before he decided to pursue acting, and he had invested in himself in the bodybuilding and got into the supplement game and all of that stuff. And there was the rag to riches part that you mentioned came through very clearly in the Arnold piece. He also talked a lot about his family and
his brother.
his brother and his father.
Yeah.
And all of that. And it was really an immigrant story that you're kind of following along on with him. And you realize how brilliant of a business person he is and a people person. And he tackles some of the things that you've heard about in the news and the tabloids about his extramarital affairs and all of that and the pain. And he takes that off the chin. Like, he took it. You don't get really much of any of that in the Sly piece, which I thought, again, I was like, wow, steroid use. Arnold takes it. Arnold talked a little bit about that. The pressure that's Stallone and that era of action star was under to, keep their bodies in these like unrealistic forms, the epitome of the action figure, all of that stuff. Like, they kind of gloss over it. They don't really talk about like what it does to your body and, and like ultimately how he, may have been typecast and well, they don't really get into any of that. I was really disappointed. I only watched it once. I'm glad you had a second experience with it, but for me,
it was disappointing. And
yeah.
I'll tell you, going back to Tarantino, some of the best commentary once again was from him. And I really like when he's talking about Rocky 2. And he said, this was a sort of how do you phrase it? A close look, a dissection, I guess, of celebrity.
Yeah.
And what that looks like. And that side of celebrity that most celebrities, before they're celebrities, don't realize that there's a downside to being famous. And I like when he says, Stallone was going after critics and throwing mail around the house. Because that's Apollo throwing the mail when he's on top of the stairs, the hate mail. He's all of it was reflecting in his real life. It made me appreciate Rocky 2 more.
Right.
Because honestly, that's my least favorite Rocky film. Well, maybe 5, but 2's. I mean, I still like 2 a lot, but it's my least favorite. But it kind of gave me a greater appreciation for it. But it's just still outside of that, I didn't really learn anything new.
That didn't come out of his mouth.
It didn't. Also, where the fuck was Carl Weathers? And you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And
Dolph Lundgren.
And Dolph Lundgren. And why didn't he show anything about Creed? I mean, he was nominated for an Oscar, right? For Best Supporting Actor.
Right.
And he won an award. What was it? Something for the first Creed for like Best Supporting Actor. And his performances were beautiful. Do you think it's because he's bitter about the franchise and everything that's going? It's just so strange. I guess maybe because he didn't write and direct those. I don't know. But still,
it's about the legacy of that character kind of being brought into a new era of, of nostalgia, a new era of filmmaking, that Ryan Coogler and Michael B. Jordan, this generation's underdog are taking the thing that he created and continuing it on in their way. Maybe he's bitter about it.
I don't know. I mean, he battles cancer, and it's a beautiful performance.
Yeah,
God, it's great. And I liked the Rocky Balboa stuff, but he talked about his son. He didn't, and I understand that it's painful, and far be it for me to judge anybody about the loss of a child. That's something I hope I never have to go through, or any of us do for that matter. But I just feel like if you're gonna go there, then go there.
Yeah.
Talk about it. I mean, I knew more about Schwarzenegger's, I don't want to call him an illegitimate son because that's a human being, but the one he had from the affair.
Right.
You more about that than I did Sage Stallone, who was his co-star in Rocky 5 and then passed away.
His only son.
How did that impact him? Like, I mean, obviously it's not been easy on him,
but he didn't even talk about any of his kids. He didn't talk about what it like. There was nothing more to it than just that. Like, he talked about, writing and having these moments with his son in Rocky, but obviously they just quickly flash up like Sage Stallone born.
Yeah.
Date died such and such date, and nothing more about the relationship he has with his daughters and being a family man. Like, he doesn't really get into that. There was nothing personal about it. It was always through the lens of filmmaking.
Right, because he neglected so much of their life because of filmmaking.
Right.
I think there's a little bit more than that you might be giving it credit for that I caught the second time, where he talks about his daughters. It's not, believe me, it's not enough,
Yeah.
but it's there. He does get into it a little bit, but not that much. I mean, it's almost like he's very guarded with that, and that's fine. Just because he's a public figure doesn't mean we gotta own it. But if you're gonna do a documentary about your life,
Dude,
man,
the whole thing felt guarded. It's
the
like,
whole thing felt
yeah,
guarded.
I mean, like, great example here. So at the beginning of the documentary, you're treated with this, like, this, I don't know. He says this thing about, I feel like I need to start over again. I need to move, and that's why I'm packing up all my things, and I'm headed out. I'm leaving.
Why?
Why and where?
Why? And where?
Yeah, we don't. No one gets the answer for that, right?
So
Like,
I know he's
I did some sleuthing
yeah.
on the back end, and finally he moved to Philly, of all places. But like, like, you don't really understand what's happening there. Then, he's like, oh, he's walking down the streets of New York, and somebody's, walking. Oh, so you live here? Oh, no, I live on the neighborhood. Yeah, I grew up in this building over here.
That felt staged.
That felt so weird to me. I'm like, dude, are you gonna walk into like, show us how small that apartment was, like, bring it to life? Again, contrasting this from the Arnold piece, you go to Arnold's childhood home and see the room that he lived in, the
Right.
places that he grew up around,
That village.
the village, and
Yeah.
then they bring you back. It was great storytelling, because they start you there and they end you there at the end of the docuseries, because they're turning his childhood home into a museum.
And that's just it. Stallone is a very good storyteller.
Yeah.
He's a good writer, and he's a damn fine filmmaker. And I just felt, man, we just didn't. There's some cool stuff I did like. I liked at the very end. So I'll say something positive about it here, because there was good shit in it. There's no doubt about it. I like at the very end where he talks about that last Rambo and how he had him in the rocking chair, but then he
Right.
realizes the shot zoomed out, the chair wasn't moving. So he
Yeah,
had
this is like CGI.
yeah, so he had the
Fix it in
CGI
post.
team. Yeah, he had the CGI. He goes, "Look, I like happy endings. Sue me." And he walks off, and it ends that way.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was clever. I liked that. That was good. And there was some good stuff. Getting to like where he was injured on set, especially for the Expendables.
Yeah.
But I would like to have even more of that. I mean, he got rattled in Rocky IV. Lundgren fucked him up really badly at one point,
Right.
and we didn't even get into that. I don't know.
I mean, he didn't even get into, like, because the other thing that they said was that, like, Rocky was a genre-defining film for sports,
Mhm.
right? But they didn't really talk about what it took to bring that to life, the choreography, the hurt, the pain that came with actually getting punched and actually selling all of that stuff,
Right.
and making sure that it was a fundamental part of every, part of the series.
Right.
We
Right.
didn't talk He didn't talk about any of those things.
None of those
He,
things.
he you know, and look, like, the whole documentary is done through the series, through the lens of his 3 franchises, which I will tell you, when I found out, when this movie was screened, or this documentary was screened, it was timed to the Expendables 4 movie. It's like a week before. I'm like, this is just a marketing push. But, like, I wouldn't consider the Expendables to be like one of the all-time favorite franchises of of cinema. No. I'm sure there's folks that are probably listening like, dude, it's amazing. What are you talking about? But, like, I'm like, it's a bunch of broken dudes, like, trying to shove this thing.
It doesn't have the cultural impact that Rocky
No,
and Rambo
no.
had.
But he talked so much about Rambo and how he wanted to portray the character, but he didn't talk about how he evolved those characters over time. Like,
Correct.
and even falling on the sword for, like, you know, the dumb jock that Balboa is, to then becoming this uber sophisticated person in Rocky 4, to then going back to being this dummy. You know what I mean? Like, there was nothing, you didn't really get into any of the meat, and I was just like, oh, dude, we're okay. So we're just having some appetizers today. Okay, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, sure. That's a good way to put it.
Anyways,
Yeah, it all felt like that. A couple of cool things I did learn. I like this and I think maybe I knew this and forgot I knew it, but I like the ice skating scene with he and Adrian.
I remember hearing about that too.
Yeah, and then like
yeah.
all they ran out of money, and so they had to cut all the extras, and so he had to kind of rewrite it, and it was one of those moments in cinema that it was a gift because
that's an amazing scene.
Yeah, he pays the guy to get in to skate with her for a few minutes, and like imagine that scene having extras and stuff. It just it would have changed. Could have changed the course of the entire film. I mean, that's a great scene. I love stuff like that. I just wanted more of it. So overall, it was good. It just wasn't great. And I will say that I did like it better the second time. I would encourage you to watch it again. I may watch it one more time.
I don't have time to give like that, but sure.
But I'll say that I don't understand why there wasn't more cast members. It was great to see Talia Shire. She looked great too. But I would have loved to have seen Burt Young because obviously he passed away before that came out. And
I mean,
some kind of tribute to him or something. The guy just died.
He worked with so many different people. I mean, Arnold is on there, right? And he's talking about the era of, the action stars, and nobody runs, 3 franchises like him. He's amazing. The epitome of working out. Great. Like, dude, why are you a shell of yourself in this man's documentary when you gave such like conjecture and depth in your own series? I just didn't understand that. Oh, this is amazing. Yeah, like, all right, bro, keep it moving.
Well, and R.I.P. Burt Young, dude.
Yeah.
What an incredible character that Polly was. And if you go back, the only film that he doesn't work in for me, at least for the first part of it, is Rocky 2. I think part of it's so jarring that it picks up right after the first one, and he's like 50 pounds lighter. That was always weird. It was always weird. But also that the end of that film, this wasn't touched upon in the documentary, but Talia Shire was supposed to be at the fight. Adrian was supposed to be there, and she had a major conflict in shooting with something else, maybe a Godfather film or something. Would that have been about the same time? 1979?
Godfather 2.
Godfather 2. Yeah, so. I guess that's probably what it was. So she couldn't be there. So he had to write her out and write her in somehow. And so she's at the apartment watching it on TV with Polly. Again, imagine that not being in the film. It's great stuff. So he's got great moments in that. But aside from that film, I mean, dude, he's the best thing about Rocky 5. I mean, he's hilarious in that movie, dude.
He's hilarious in Rocky 4.
Dude, he's
not the director's cut.
Not the director's cut. Not the director's cut. Not the director's cut. Yeah. Oh. Or, she loves me. You take off the fucking robot. But in Rocky 5, he's like, yo, yo, yo. And the kids are like, I think it's supposed to be ho, ho, ho. It's like, what's the freaking difference? Like, hey, look, we got an 80-proof Santa, all that stuff. That stuff was great.
Yeah.
But man, is he good in Rocky Balboa, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, he has to carry the legacy of his sister and his relationship with Rocky. God, he was Stallone really got lucky. I mean, to get Carl Weathers so perfectly cast.
Yeah, they're great.
Everybody.
Even when he cast what's his name, Milo Ventimiglia.
Oh, dude, that's incredible. That dude's an incredible actor.
Yeah.
And Sage was still alive when they filmed Rocky Balboa, so he made a conscious decision not to use him again.
I mean, choice of the son may not, I don't want to do this. I want to do my own thing. I don't want to be kind of cast.
Sure, yeah. I don't. We don't know. That's another weird thing. At the top of Rocky 5, it's right after Rocky 4, and all of a sudden there's a different house everybody's living in.
Yeah.
But somebody else that passed away too, to jump around a little bit here, is Richard Mall. And he played Bull on Night Court. And I grew up with that show. That relaunch thing they did this year was really bad. But there was a time where that show was so zany and so off color and so ridiculously cheesy and tongue in cheek and satirical and everything. I loved Night Court, and he was Bull,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And he had such a sweet demeanor about him, especially with his bailiffs, especially with the old ladies. Remember, they kept casting old ladies as his sidekicks, and they kept dying. So that's when they cast Marsha Warfield finally.
He's a good,
good Who now she's an old lady. That's because you and I are getting old. But that sucked. But anyway, okay, so we'll wrap up this conversation here or this topic. I would say I'll give it a, I don't know, man. I'll give it a B minus.
Yeah, it'd have been like a C plus for me.
Yeah, well, and I would have. It was a C plus where I watched it again. I bumped it up one notch, just because the stuff that I liked jumped out a little more. Because I already knew this is disappointing,
right?
So just kind of enjoy the good stuff, and so I did, and that's how I came with the B plus. Okay, let's shift gears here to one of our favorite topics: how you and I became friends.
Yes, sir.
On the Twitter, Star Wars. There's a lot of stuff going on with Star Wars right now, obviously, and Dave Filoni is now in charge of the creative output, so to speak, of Star Wars, which I think is great. I mean, who can complain about that? I mean, it's about as pure as it gets. He is he's truly a protege of Lucas.
100%.
Yeah, I mean, it's like he just carries the flag, and he's so passionate about the franchise, and he's so protective of it. I'm feeling better. Like, I love the sequel trilogy. I know that we have difference of opinion on the Rise of Skywalker, and that's fine. But we both know that Daisy Ridley was so freaking wonderful as Rey. But even as someone that loves those films, I'm excited that she's coming back. But at the same time, I'm kind of like, why? Like, what is this?
Yeah, I and look, you and I have had many offline conversations around, how generational Star Wars needs to be, right? And in using some of these actors and these roles as, the connective tissue from one generation to the next. And while we may ultimately despise whatever film she creates with, Dave Filoni, who again, in my mind, can do no wrong.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I felt better about it now.
Yeah.
If
we ultimately don't like it, a whole generation of new Star Wars lovers are going to fall in love with, Daisy Ridley, and that's going to be their Luke Skywalker, if you will.
Correct.
So, if all good, we'll see what it is. But yeah, I mean, I share your sentiment with Filoni, being chief creative officer for all things Star Wars. And I mean, I think, if you contrast what happened or what had happened with Marvel and sort of Kevin Feige being like that person, yeah, Star Wars definitely needed it. If you think about the construction of the sequel trilogy, there was no through line in terms of a content or creative person that could have connected the dots. And so every writer decided to do something different with the films and the characters that they were ultimately handed. Dave Filoni being an absolute lover and gatekeeper, if you will, or truther for Star Wars, will continue to push it in the way that I think fans are expecting it to be, right? And feeling very true to the multi-generational sort of faces that it has. Everything that he was able to do in the Ahsoka series, from bringing these animated characters to life, make you connect with them, like them, all of that stuff. Like, that's not an easy thing to do.
No. To make Ahsoka work, man, because you had to make people love that wasn't into non-live action.
Yeah. I mean, that's not easy. I knew people that started watching Ahsoka who had no clue who half those people were.
Yeah.
And they fell in love with it. And they went back and were like, I've got to watch some of this Rebel stuff.
And I mean, hell, even myself, I just educated myself on it and watched enough to know what the hell was going on. But I wasn't really into that shit either. I'm still not.
Yeah.
I'm not. Star Wars is live action to me. And I enjoy a lot of the stuff a lot of the content that's not. I do. There's, what it is? I think there's so much stuff that we love. DC. I love good dramas. I love just movies.
Mm-hmm.
But all these different properties also that there's so much time to invest in Star Wars as it is for me. It's like, I don't have more time to invest in Star Wars. Like, I can't get into
the books.
Not really. Yeah. Or the books or I did read a couple of books back in the day that they're no longer canon. I don't even remember them. Honestly, I really just don't even remember them. It's almost like I didn't read them. But I did, cover to cover, and just, it's been so many years. I don't even remember. I bet I would if I picked it back up and started going through the 2 I read. I'd be like, oh, that's right, and then this happens. But
They're bringing a lot of that stuff back, actually.
well, they're tying
refreshing it.
They're tying a bunch of stuff in. So I'm excited for Star Wars. And largely I've liked everything that Disney has, that Lucasfilm has done since Disney bought it. I just want to call it Lucasfilm. Solo is really the only thing that was a miss for me. Boba Fett, I think it was underappreciated, but it's still not quality like Mandalorian or Andor. But what about Ewan McGregor, dude? You think we're gonna see him again? I sent you that video that Ryan that Aries did for Screen Crush, and I watched it. It was an interesting tie-in of ways that Obi-Wan could come back. But I mean, I didn't need to watch that video to think of creative ways.
Maybe as a Force ghost, maybe. But otherwise, I don't want to see season 2 of Obi-Wan.
Well, I don't think we'll get that. I think that he'll be in something else.
Yeah, I mean, as a Force ghost, or maybe even as there's a couple of things that they could do, right? Like, there's still that time between, the Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope, where the Rebel Alliance is up and coming and all of that good stuff. Could he cross paths with Cassian Andor potentially?
Yeah.
As Cassian is in a meeting with what's his name, Bail Organa, and they somehow cross paths. Maybe.
Well, he's referenced in Rogue One.
Yeah. So,
he told, you know what I'm talking about, right?
Who, Bail Organa?
Yeah. Well, no, Obi-Wan is.
Is he?
Yeah, he's talking to who's he talking to? Bill Organa.
He's talking to Mon Mothma.
That's right. After their little meeting.
They're talking about like getting, I remember that.
Is that I got a friend. I got a Jedi.
Yeah. He's got a friend, but and then you assume I think people assume that it was Obi-Wan Kenobi, and it ends up being Leia.
No, he's talking about Obi-Wan, because I can't remember the exact dialogue, but it's clearly him.
Yeah,
in my opinion, anyway. In my head, it is. So there.
I think the one thing that look, I'm with you. I really enjoy what Lucasfilm under Disney has been doing with Star Wars. I am a consumer of multiple mediums, right? So like, I play the video games, and I keep up with some of the books and all of that good stuff. I guess the thing that does start to bother me, though, if there's anything at all, and it kind of goes back to this idea that I've talked about at length about this, we're kind of stuck in this time period thing, like this era within Star Wars, is that the allure of Luke Skywalker, of being this Jedi character, this unknown thing, this entity, right? This sort of myth, becomes slightly diminished in my mind when you have other Force users and lightsaber wielders popping up in every episode or every show. That starts to like knock it. And I'm not saying I don't want it, and I'm not saying that I don't like it. I'm just saying that mythology around Luke Skywalker and the Return of the Jedi and all of that stuff, like, that starts to just get a little watered down. But again, it's perspective. It's only through the stories have only been done through the lens of the Skywalkers. So
even in the Force Awakens, Rey and her little posse.
You fought with Luke Skywalker? He's real?
I thought he was a myth. He's like, he was just doing his shit like 20 years earlier, right? I mean, if that. But I think obviously we're in good hands. They keep putting good content up. I really don't care with the timeline. I don't care how much they put out, as long as it's consistently good. Then I'm here for it. Okay, let's shift gears a little bit here. Let's talk a little Batman. So I'm excited, obviously, for the Batman 2, whatever they're going to end up calling this thing. I will say that the Batman as a film has not. It's not really aging well for me. Like, it's weird because there's so much about it I love, dude. Yeah. There's scenes in that movie I'm going, I can't believe this is in live action. That this is just incredible. But as a movie, it's kind of a chore to get through for me.
Well, I mean, I think that was the problem from the beginning. It was conflated films, like 3 hours and change long. It's kind of
too
too long.
long. It's too long, and the third act really is a kind of a drag. But I still, but I like it enough because there's so much really great shit in it that I'm almost more excited for where it goes than I am that movie. You know what I'm saying? Like it's a good springboard, and I'm glad that we have it. I don't think it's something I'm going to be rewatching 20 years from now necessarily, but I do think I'm confident that I am going to be rewatching what comes after it, right? And I'm super excited for this Penguin spinoff that they just started filming again because the strike is over. I mean, dude, I love that portrayal by I cannot get Christian Bale out of my head. What is the actor's name? He's Irish.
Colin Farrell.
Thank you. Dude's a legit actor. I mean,
he brings the stuff.
I mean, he's a stud. He's the real deal. And yeah, I'm excited. I'm stoked for the sequel. I'm still bummed about all the stuff with Keaton. I mean, I still have the Flash thing here, by the way. But I don't think we're going to see him again.
Nice.
But there's a lot of, man, this whole DC thing is just a trip, though, bro.
I'm
kind of over it. I mean, I'm excited.
I'm struggling, man.
Dude, I am too. I'm not even excited for Superman Legacy. I'm just like, ugh.
It's too early. It's too early to tell.
No, absolutely. And once it comes out and the trailer's up and we'll see how it
goes. But like the brand is underwater and tainted in the worst way. And it's funny. I've had a lot of offline discussions. You know, our podcast has like a group chat, and you know, the past couple of weeks we've been like dumping a lot on Marvel, which is like very rare because I think people were like, "You guys are Marvel apologists." Blah blah. Of course, Aaron, you love all things related to Marvel. Blah blah blah, and that's not real. But you know, we've been taking a very hard look at how these films recently have been performing, and I'm coming to the sense of like the comic book movie franchise, that era of films has been oversaturated, and what's happened in the past 2 years is that it's been saturated by not very good storytelling and this rush to kind of just push content out. Because we've seen it on Disney Plus, like with all of the Marvel shows that were happening there. DC went like balls deep with Adam, Shazam, Blue Beetle, all of these things that are happening that like didn't do a very good job at telling good stories. And The Flash, another great example. And now we're kind of coming at the end of it where they're about to restart everything on the DC side of things. And I'm like, you probably should have given yourself like a 2-year hiatus to like cleanse the palate, because they're jumping right in. I mean, Aquaman drops in a couple of weeks. Do you think I give a shit about what's happening with Aquaman? I don't care. I'm not going to go see it.
I'll go see it probably. I'll probably take my girls.
Probably for your show.
Yeah, just to go see it. But I'm more excited for the Iron Claw, which I had a press screening for that last week, by the way, and I wasn't able to go. The Von Erich wrestling.
Yeah.
As I'm from Dallas, and so like that was a big deal when I was growing up. When you used to go to Dallas Sportatorium, and I used to have Von Erich posters, and I mean, anyway.
But yeah, I mean,
going back to Aquaman, I'll go see it, but I will tell you, it feels, this all just feels so gross. I don't know, man.
We're all feeling it. I mean,
we're all feeling it.
Everyone is feeling it. I really do. I think we're all, our tastes have changed. The desire to go to the movies has changed dramatically since the pandemic. We got a taste of, you know, VOD and kind of taking content from the couch, and you know, the movie experience necessarily hasn't changed. So it really sucks if you go to see a movie that you think you're going to like and you're not treated to the thing that you're expecting to get, because you're spending a shit ton of money to go to the movies now. You know, every theater, every theater chain is upselling premium seats. Like it's becoming overly gimmicked, and frankly so is the comic book movie franchise like genre. It's becoming overly gimmicked.
Well, Jodie Foster says she's glad it's almost over.
I don't know if that's necessarily true, because you know, look, Superman with Chris Reeves in the 70s, and here we are, you know, 40 and a half years later, and we're still watching these things. They have to evolve. And I think that's what we're feeling. I think there's an evolution that needs to happen in those films, specifically in just the way that they're telling the stories. But it's also just the way that we're consuming content. I think that is also something that needs to evolve. The reason why those comic book movies have been like tremendous is because they were event films, right? They were huge moments in time. You know, even the Joker film with Joaquin Phoenix was a very, very different kind of film. It was a kind of very dark take on a classic character that I think people weren't expecting. And when they heard about how good it was, they all turned out to go check it out. I can't quite put my finger on what the big deal was with the first Aquaman, but I do not think that it's going to make anywhere near the amount of money that it did.
I don't think it will either.
Ago.
I mean, who knows? Maybe it does $2 billion. I don't know. I don't see it. But Joker is a good example. I'm more excited about the sequel than the film. The original film.
Yeah,
ooh, this is not good in the middle of the podcast. Something in my throat here. But Joker in a lot of ways is like the Batman to me. I'm more excited about what's coming as a result of those films than I am at those films themselves. And I'll tell you, all this conversation makes me appreciate Matt Reeves and the Batman even more, because that content that's coming is in a vacuum. And I want
it's not going to have a shelf life.
I want it to stay there. Like, just give us a really badass trilogy, tell your story, have this cool spinoff, and don't cross it over ever with anything. No magic, no Superman, no nothing. So, but at least Zack Snyder said yesterday in the Hollywood Reporter that he would come back and do the Dark Knight Returns, and that he could save DC. I'm only bringing that up to troll you, by the way, because you
can't stand Zack Snyder, man.
Yeah, dude, I'm not real crazy about it either. You know what's funny?
Like his filmmaking aside, I think just the way he conducts himself.
Oh, it's
out there in the wild is just deplorable sometimes.
Yeah, he sort of and I like Snyder's a lot of his stuff. I do, but man, he the worst part of fandom was a lot of it was from under his.
It was inspired by his lack of saying anything.
Yeah, and it just he just sort of reinforced it or enabled it a little bit, maybe. But I will say that it was kind of funny. Ryan Haas, our good friend Ryan, put up a great tweet about why would we need that anyway? There's a great animated film to the Dark Knight Returns, right. And
he attempted it with BVS,
and then he attempted it with BVS. You know, kind of a funny moment is I was sitting there and all I could think about was BVS and Doomsday. And I put up a tweet from friends from work. I was like, because there's this ongoing joke between years ago. I guess I said that Doomsday looked cool in a trailer, and then I did a 180. I can't deny it because there's apparently 25,000 witnesses to me saying that, and it's on a podcast somewhere. So I just said something like, maybe Rick Shew will like Doomsday. He's like, yeah, have you ever read it? And I'm like, huh? And I'm on a morning walk, and I'm like, oh my God, what am I saying? Oh, it's not Death of Superman. I'm conflating, but to be fair, in that sense, it was kind of a funny moment. I had to delete the tweet before I got dogpiled. But it was kind of a moment where I said, you know, BVS was ambitious, and he did take some cool stuff from different books and some themes from other, you know what I'm saying? So there was some good stuff in it. It just, the film didn't land for me, but enough of him. I just was bringing that up more as a troll, but it's, yeah. We'll move on from Zack Snyder. And I just dropped my phone, so my notes are gone. So you still have the notes I text you for the show? Cause it's down there. I can't pick it up.
Yeah, I've got it there.
What's that? I got to wrap up here soon anyway, but what was our last little topic?
No, I mean, you kind of hit everything on here. I think the one thing that you had mentioned was Frasier, which I know nothing about.
Well, being that I'm a huge Cheers fan, and I did love Frasier, it was a remarkable spinoff. I have been watching the new Frasier, and it's just okay. It's not bad. It's just okay. And Lilith was on recently, Bebe Neuwirth, who's fantastic. But, you know, she's been 20 years since she's done the part, at least 15 maybe. and it was weird. It's weird.
It's really hard to jump back in the saddle
Gosh,
with
man,
audiences when you haven't done something for a
and
long time.
you could tell because she plays that character so easily, so seamless. But I felt like she was struggling a little bit,
Yeah,
because she's probably trying to find her again.
yeah.
But it's okay. I will tell you this real quick, and then we'll wrap up. I watched Breaking Bad for the first time ever.
Mhm.
Jen and I did.
Amazing show.
Oh my god, dude! It's one of those rare things in TV where the hype was not just warranted. I thought it was even better than the hype.
Yeah,
Like, it's that fucking good.
it's my favorite show ever.
It is freaking flawless.
Yeah.
I do not like Better Call Saul. I don't.
We talked about this. I remember we had a phone conversation about that.
I know. I
told you got to get this. You got to get out of season 1.
I did.
And you still don't like it.
I don't. I literally don't like it. I don't like the style of it. I think it feels. It's got this weird, almost like heightened, tongue-in-cheek reality to it. It almost feels like a parallel, or like an alternative universe. Yeah, it doesn't feel. And the actors are. I don't need a backstory on Mike. I don't need it. I just don't. I don't need it,
man.
And it's good.
That's so good, man. The storytelling
some of the stuff with Mike is good, but it also, I don't know, man.
Gus Fring pops back up, right? Like it's about his rise to power and his war against the Salamakas.
Of course, and none of that stuff is working for me. He's back at his chicken place. He's walking around. I go, he looks like he's aged. I mean, you can tell that he's older, and that's a little distracting.
Yeah,
I just don't like it. I literally don't like that show.
I love that show.
And it's so disappointing for me. I'm kind of done. I fast forwarded, just went to the last season and just watched the last couple of episodes, by the way, just to kind of just be done with it.
My God.
I know. It didn't work for me at all. So I don't care about Better Call Saul. But it doesn't take away from
No, it doesn't. It does not
at all. No, Breaking Bad is incredible stuff, man. And I liked El Camino. I thought it was a good Jesse story. That film has some of the same problems that Better Call Saul has for me, though. Is that, what's the actor's name? He's in this.
Aaron Paul.
No, not Aaron. Aaron looks fine. The weird. He's like, his uncle's the Nazi in Breaking Bad, and
Paul.
He's in the new Scorsese film.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about. He's a weird looking guy.
Yeah, but dude, he's aged like 20 years, and it's like the next day.
Yeah.
And they didn't do anything to de-age him at all. They didn't even change his hair color. Like, his hair is all of a sudden like brown, not even blonde anymore.
Yeah.
So that's distracting. But dude, Breaking Bad is just like, I keep going back and just watching clips on YouTube. And I'm like, I'm going to sit down and watch the whole series again. It's fucking awesome.
That is a Breaking Bad was such a good show, and it is very, very dark that it leaves marks on your soul. And so I had to like take a couple of breathers after certain episodes where I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I just saw that or that happened, or it's like that moment where and spoilers if you haven't seen it, I don't know why you haven't, but when he lets Jane die, I had to take a little break from that show.
He knows that if he lets her live, he's
gonna die.
They're gonna OD or something together.
Jesse's gonna die,
and he had to protect his interest.
But he is one of the most lovable, hateable characters ever written.
When people were telling me you're gonna hate him, I'm like, I loved him to the very end, and I might need to see a therapist about it. Even after he poisoned the 10-year-old boy, I'm like, yeah, but he knew that he wasn't gonna kill him. He gave him just enough to. But I'm like, I'm justifying it.
Yeah.
Like, what has Walter White done to me? He's got me, turned me to a cult follower.
Oh man,
all right, buddy.
I hated most was Skylar. I couldn't stand her.
I watched the scene today where she shows him the money and she says, "How big of a pile do you need?" And I think in that scene too, by the way, is when he realizes that he can't stop. And at the very end of the show, when he tells her, I did this, and she said, "Do not tell me one more time that you did this for our family."
Yeah.
And he said, "I did it for me." Because I liked it.
He's a selfish son of a bitch.
That's right. And I think that scene where she shows him all that cash in that storage.
Oh man, I was storage unit.
I think that's the beginning of when he realized that he's not doing it for his family anymore.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right, buddy, let's wrap this up. Great chat. I know we just covered a lot of stuff, but but it was nice talking to you. And we just got this podcast fired back up because me, Brian, and Courtney are actors. We and to be fair, Courtney really was the one that led the charge on this. We really followed SAG's strict rules about podcasting. I did one with Bob and Freak about our favorite live action Joker, which probably even shouldn't have done that one. And then I did something about food, which had nothing to do with movies. And I'm gonna still. I've got another episode of my food spinoff thing. Support local restaurants coming pretty soon too. By the way, Chef Albin Basiri. I'll be interviewing him, but it feels good to be back. It just feels good to talk to you. We haven't done this in a while. And like I said, me, Bob, and Freak Base will be doing a show real soon. And Eric Holzman was going to maybe join us, but I guess he flaked on us, whatever. To be fair, he never actually said he was 100%. He was just going to try. All right, you can find you. I want you to tell us where we can find you, and then I'll close it out and let's get that.
Yeah, it's kind of hard. You can find us on X or former Twitter, whatever, at the Fanboy Garage. Still have a Instagram page at the Fanboy Garage, or you can get at me on Instagram at Allure25.
There you go. I'm on Instagram and Facebook as well. It's just really personal stuff. It's just family pictures mainly and stuff like that.
Funny how social media is just
high school friends. On Twitter, I'm at Dick Shoes on my personal, and then we're at Friends from Work Pod. Follow us everywhere. Subscribe. Leave us reviews. We really want to grow the show. We appreciate you guys very much. On behalf of Courtney and Brian, this is Rick Shew, Friends from Work. Let's chat. We'll see you next time.
Get down.